based on your understanding of the history on farms and on other locations throughout the township.
They were present, yes.
Did you view them as accessory uses?
I did.
Did you ever look to restrict where oil and gas wells could be located or regulate them in any manner whatsoever?
It was never on my radar screen.
Okay. And you'd agree with me, would you not, that there is a difference in technology and technique for drilling conventional shallow wells and unconventional horizontal wells?
Absolutely.
Okay. And if the township wanted to treat shallow conventional wells differently than unconventional horizontal wells, what would the township have to do?
I would recommend to the current administration that they create a separate ordinance.
And that's what was done in ordinance 127?
Ordinance 127, yes.
Are you familiar with the provision in the municipality's plan code? I believe Professor Daniels cited it, that requires zoning ordinances, says they shall provide for the reasonable development of minerals in each municipality.
I am.
I believe that was section 603I. Are you familiar with that?
I'll take your word for it. That's a section, yes.
And under the MPC, what's your understanding of how the term mineral is defined in the municipality's planning code, section 107?
I don't have it memorized, but I know it not only included the removal of materials subsurface, but also referred to specifically removal of gas and oil.
Okay, is that true with respect to the definition that was contained in the township zoning ordinance prior to the adoption of ordinance 127?
No, it was not.
Okay, and I know with Professor Daniels, we had some discussion about the definition of mineral removal in section 175(8), page 19 of Exhibit
Thank
number 1.
you. Thank you.
Were you present when Professor Daniels testified?
I was in the back of the room, yes.
And do you agree with, I think, the conclusion that Professor Daniels came to, that that definition does not include oil and gas well?
The ordinance as written in the Township Code does not include oil and gas.
There was some testimony by Professor Daniels regarding the general purposes of the zoning ordinance in section 175-4 on page 2. I draw your attention to that.
I have it.
Let me ask you this, prior to your participating in the adoption of ordinance 127, did you read the definition of mineral removal?
Is it currently written?
Yes.
Yes.
And you were familiar with that?
Yes.
And you were actually asked about that at public meetings, and people took the position that that is where oil and gas development is limited to, isn't that correct?
There was the conclusion, yes, because it should have included oil and gas, but it didn't by definition.
And the community objectives in section 175.5, and I think some of these were cited by Professor Daniels, but subparagraph A,
Yes.
it states that the present rural atmosphere of the township should be maintained and developed, channeled into a logical sequence rather than permitted to occur in a haphazard arrangement across the township.
Yes.
And you believe the adoption of ordinance 127 is consistent with that?
Yes.
And paragraph B provides that areas which are actively being farmed, which are particularly well suited to farming because of soil types, size, or location should be protected and preserved.
Yes.
Do you believe the passage of ordinance 127 meets that community development
I'd
objective?
just like to note the continuing objection to the offer of testimony from Mr. Fodi seemingly as an expert on land planning. This is going beyond his interpretation of the ordinance, which I understand the board allowed because he served as a zoning officer. This is getting into general planning opinion.
Well,
he's commenting on specific portions of the ordinance, and his role as zoning officer, he was called to do so, so I'm gonna allow it. I agree with you. If he gets into the ideas of general planning, then yes, that would be beyond the scope of what he's offered for. But as the specific, that's, I don't have a objection to that. So, your objection is there.
Can you repeat?
Paragraph 2. The adoption of ordinance 127 supports that community development objective.
Yes.
Okay, and it just so happens that the RAG district has both agricultural uses and is where the township identified higher density residential development when it adopted ordinance 125, correct?
Yes.
And could you just express to the board why you believe limiting the PRDs to the RAG district helps preserve agricultural land?
I'm just gonna check now what the relevance of the PRDs are to this. We allowed a fair amount of this, but it's really well beyond the issues that are before the board.
Mr. Gallagher, there's been a lot of testimony and position taking here that allowing this particular well site in the vicinity or near a PRD is somehow problematic. And I think that the township has, and Fodi's explained that the township has tried to limit the PRDs and try to preserve agricultural space. I'm just asking why he thinks that's the case.
Well, now this, I mean, it's clearly now getting into planning expert testimony here. He's asking about the basics of a planning opinion, not an interpretation of the ordinance.
With all due respect, Mr. Fodi spent far more time in Middlesex Township and understands the development patterns and existing practices than Professor Daniels, who didn't step a foot in the township before he issued his report.
Well, without getting into an argument of what was or what wasn't, who is or who isn't, I believe it's appropriate. It goes to the core of your case as to what was done, what was not done by the township. And so I think that I'm going to allow his testimony on this issue too.
He had given testimony about ordinance 125, and not allowing the sprawl of PRDs into all of the AGA and AGB zoning districts.
Correct.
And does that comport with that community objective to preserve and protect agricultural land?
Yes, it does. I think the map speaks for itself, both the prior ordinance 125 and post 125, that everywhere except the commercial corridor of Middlesex Township, you could build a small lot, high-density development because sewage was in the township. It was readily accessible now because of the 2006 project. The water systems of the southwestern corner and the north, in this corridor over here, provided by Adams Municipal Water Authority and the Saxonburg Water Authority over here and over here, the city public water was becoming closer. And there was speculation that instead of in the industry of gas drilling went to the north and the east, they were going to use underground potable water supply lines through public right-of-ways. We had corridors, as you can see in this township, that never had an inkling of getting near public water, and all of a sudden we have water provided to them for free. And you're looking at 400 to 600 acres up in this corridor. I'm not saying that this family farm is ever going to sell, but all of a sudden public city water was now provided along a public roadway, and sewage was right here in the valley behind them. That was inconsistent with the 2004 comprehensive plan. Whereas we kept everything consistent where the trunk lines for the sewer system in 2006 was limited to this general area. The Planning Commission felt it was prudent that the river would be maintained so that it had provision of a completely innocuous installation of a water line from point A to point B going through Middlesex. All of a sudden opened up thousands of acres up here as a high-density residential development that wasn't expected ever.
And we'll get into the details of ordinance 127, but you do agree that well site development and drilling were permitted in the RAG, the AGA, and AGB districts.
Yes,
And there's farming in each one of the zoning districts, correct?
that is correct.
And you believe that allowing that drilling somehow preserves and protects agricultural and farm operations?
Now, again, we're getting really gives a testimony that goes well beyond his interpretation of the ordinance, and asks him to opine on very broad planning principles.
Well, I don't think you need to be an expert to render that opinion. I think his lay experience and what that does to give farmers options is within his realm of experience and planning, and should be permitted.
So I'm gonna allow it, but it's gonna be based upon his experience and limited to the experience and qualifications of the zoning officer, certainly not.
I can explain to you that the current 3 PRDs that are approved or under construction in Middlesex Township were former family farms. The Weatherburn plan was the former Nicholas Harris farm. The current Blackberry Lane, Blackberry Estates, was the former Park Farm, where they had roosters and hens. And then we have the Merrill Black Farm, which was right here, which is now referred to as Blackhawk PRD. Those are 3 family farms that since sold to developers. And I do know that, you know, as my time as manager, that other family farms in the vicinity of these were looking to sell off because they're no longer operating family farms due to the income levels.
And what about we'll get to this too, but you just identify, for the record, where there are 3 existing wells in Middlesex Township.
We'll start the order they came in. On Logan Road, north of Cozy Corner, the Reno pad, which is right here before the sharp end of Logan Road going into Penn Township. On the Kennedy Farm, adjacent to the intersection of Sheldon Road and McFan Road, this general location.
What zoning district is that?
That's AGB.
And did you identify?
I did not. The Reno pad is in the AGA. The third location is referred to as the Fodi well pad, which is located on these parcels here, north of Route 228, also Glade Mill Road in this area, Glade Mills Road in this area.
Okay.
And that's also in the AGA zoning district.
Okay, and could you identify where the guy